Hi, and welcome to this screencast. Throughout this course, I will occasionally assign you a screencast as an introduction to a unit. This time we're going to look at some of the main themes in Unit 2. So what I would like for you to do is that just follow along with this screencast. I'm going to use this real-time whiteboard here, and I'm going to type out a few notes on this whiteboard. So what I would like for you to do is just listen to what I have to say, take notes on anything that you might deem to be important, and of course the most important things I will put on this real-time whiteboard. There might be some other things, some other details that I mentioned that you might want to put down on your own notes, but the most important notes are going to emerge on this whiteboard here. So Unit 2 kind of begins with a look at who the American people are. So if we start here, we take a look at who are the American people. And one thing that kind of stands out right from the get-go is that, as you well know, the American people have often been described as a melting pot. And I'm sure you know what this means, but just to make sure, a melting pot is basically describing the idea that there are a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different cultures that come together and form what we call the American people. So a lot of these people share the same basic values, but they of course differ as well, whether that be culturally, socially, political views, whatever it might be. So the American population as it is very, very diverse, and that is something that plays a relatively significant role in the political system, and it will increase in importance as we go into the future, because as many of you I'm sure are aware, the US is relatively close, and probably will be within the next decade or two, will turn into what is called a minority majority. And basically what minority majority means is that the minority groups that we have in the United States, all the minority groups taken together, will soon outnumber what is considered the majority today. And the majority is the white Anglo-Saxon population, but soon, within the next decade or so, or decade or two, the minorities, all the different minorities, African American, Latinos, Asian, any other minority group, those groups taken together will represent a larger percentage of the American population. So that's what's called a minority majority. So this, as I'm sure you have heard, and as I'm sure you understand, will cause a pretty significant shift, and has caused a pretty significant shift in American politics, because politicians now need to represent the interests and the values and the ideas of these minority populations. And that's really one of the big debates in today's American politics is how this is done to the most successful degree, and how the politicians can kind of adjust to this new reality. The second thing that we'll look at in this unit is how Americans learn about politics. How do they become informed citizens in regards to politics. So how do Americans learn about politics? And there's a process here that's called political socialization. And basically what that means is that is the process by which you learn about the political system and by which you form a political opinion. And that happens in a number of different ways, and what might be a little surprising to you is that what we normally label formal political socialization, that is that's kind of the part that you or that's kind of the way that you're participating in right now. That is that you learn about politics in school, for instance. You take an AP government class, or you take an US history class, and you learn about American politics. That's formal political socialization. That is important, but it's not as important as informal political socialization. And that basically means that people get their ideas about politics, and they learn to form a political opinion from what we call informal sources. That is friends, family, media, whatever it might be. So both of these formal and informal political socialization play a big role in forming the opinions of the American population when it comes to politics. A big part of this is of course to understand how we know what Americans think about politics. So how do we know what Americans think about politics? And that's one of the things that we'll look at in this unit as well. And this is, again, I assume that most of you are familiar with this. Most of this is done through polling. So we have all these different polls, Gallup polls, exit polls, whatever it might be. And we'll take a good look in this unit at what some of the problems with polling might be, what some of the advantages with polling, how polling plays a role in the political system. That's one of the things that we'll definitely look at in this unit. The next thing that we'll take a look at is how Americans form their political ideology. And as you can see, this all kind of goes together here. We start by figuring out who the American people are, how they learn about politics, how we know what they think about politics, and then we start to take a look at how they form their political ideology and how they participate in politics. And both of these questions are of course interrelated, and a lot of Americans form their political ideology relatively young. Yeah, many of you are in the process right now, I'm sure, of figuring out what political ideology you believe in, if any, whether it be a conservative or liberal or libertarian or socialist or whatever it might be. You know, during your high school years is usually when you start to become informed politically and when you start to form your political ideology. So we'll take a look at exactly how that process takes place and what factors influence that process. And then we'll look at how people participate in politics, what kind of avenues are available for people to participate in the political process. The most obvious way to participate in the political process is, of course, voting. So we'll take a look at voting and elections, how people participate. why they participate, or why they don't participate. And again, as many of you might be familiar with, the US is relatively low for being an advanced country, a relatively low rate of people participating in elections. Usually the participation rate in elections, in presidential elections, are around 60% in the United States right now, which is fairly low compared with some other Western nations that are around 85, 90, 95%. So we'll take a look at why people participate, why they elect not to participate. And as part of this, we'll also look at how elections are kind of constructed. So how are elections constructed? And most of this, of course, comes down to campaigns. Political campaigns. How do political campaigns function? Who's active in these campaigns? What role does money play in political campaigns? And again, these are issues that are, if you follow the news, very, very heavily debated in today's political system. The very last thing that we'll look at in this unit deals with the Electoral College, which is kind of a peculiar institution in American politics, and something that's relatively unusual if you look at the other Western countries in the world. So we'll take a closer look. Closer look at the Electoral College. We'll take a look at why it is there, what purpose it serves, and whether or not it actually works. And whether it works or not is, of course, kind of personal opinion. So we'll take a look at this, and hopefully you can form your own idea on whether or not the Electoral College is a good idea. So if we go back here and take a look at this unit as a whole, it basically deals with people that form the political constituency in the United States, and we are going to try to understand who those people are, how they come to form political opinions, and how those political opinions and how their political beliefs motivate them or does not motivate them or do not motivate them to participate in campaigns, in elections, and in the political process as a whole. So again, this is just a brief introduction to Unit 2, and hopefully this has given you a little bit better understanding of what we will do and a little bit of a framework to look at some of the issues in this unit. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, contact me via phone, email, and let me know if you're confused. But hopefully you're not, and good luck with this unit.